Alright, well, we're back again, and this is 7th grade design, and we are continuing to work on our project, and as it looks to me, progress is coming very quickly on this project, and so by the end of today's session, I think a good class goal would be to come to within maybe just one character of finishing this, at least so we can start to go back and dress up the opacity issues, and as well go back, outline it in a dark color so each letter is obvious to whoever it is that's viewing it as being a distinct communication letter of its own. Okay, so when we left off, this is what we were using, or where we were at. As I always review, these are the colors that were selected to be used for this project. This is the message that we're spelling out. We have 24 squares on here. Each one of them represents a letter or a symbol for something. And we're spelling out an ounce of prevention is greater than a pound of cure for this. And if you do recall, we had to make our own alphabet up that was based on this alphabet from 6th grade. But since we can't really give you this hard form right now, this worksheet, I've had to have you make your own worksheet for this, which was concentrating simply on the letters. And so by using that worksheet and these 10 colors that you've been selected to use, you should be able to make a worksheet that makes your alphabet for you, and therefore then when we spell out the message, an ounce of prevention is greater than a pound of cure, you can fill it in very quickly. Alright, so I've already got my colored pencils kind of bundled up already. And so, except for the tan, which I have been using in another project. So I'm going to set that off on the side there, make sure I've got everything I'm supposed to have, and it looks like I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 colors. Alright, when I left off, we were down here working on the letter, I believe it's a U in cure, and it looks like I had already started on some of the areas for the dark brown and the light blue there as well. So I think it's important that when you're coloring especially, and drawing, and sometimes even painting, to have something to put underneath your hand so that you don't pollute your artwork. So here we go. Now, I had already pre-tagged this from the previous session, and so I'm very I know what colors I'm looking to put in here. But normally we would consult the worksheet that we made, or our alphabet sheet, and that's how we would make sure that see, part of it is being able to give someone as soon as somebody looks at this, they're going to ask you what it means. They'll recognize some of the symbols, but they're going to ask you what it is, and you can say it's a message, and you give them your worksheet, and they will spend several minutes trying to figure out what it says. I've watched people do it. And so that's really pretty satisfying if you're the person who made the piece of artwork, that somebody would spend the time to figure out exactly what it was you meant. And so that's a good feeling. So it usually takes somebody about 5-10 minutes to figure out what it means, and that's a long time to look at your artwork and try to understand it. So they're simply trying to interpret it, and you are simply trying to communicate something to them. That was, if you remember your notes on design as part 8 of our notes, emphasis. Emphasis is, what is your artwork about? Is it just a bunch of colors and shapes, which is a fine reason to make artwork, or does it have a message in it that you want people to understand? And design work is traditionally used to communicate messages with. In advertising, it's very common in advertising, putting together colors and shapes that mean things to people, and so they immediately can start to understand what it is that they are looking at and get the message. That's what advertising is all about. This is flashing and it's driving me crazy, so I'm going to have to move over to this side, I believe, to keep that from happening. So colors and shapes, that's all it really is, but sometimes it communicates a message. So if you give the individual that is asking you the question, what does this mean, what is this thing, and this artwork, what's it all about, then you give them the alphabet, and they can sit there and figure it out for themselves.
And usually they, by the time they figure it all out, they smile. It's very inventive for them. They're like, huh. So, and this project goes back a long ways, and it's one of the best design projects I've ever seen. But it was created in cooperation with a young lady who came to our class late in the quarter, transferred from another school. And so everyone else was already doing another project and was almost done with it, so I thought this would come together pretty quick. So we had her spell out her name and a few words about herself that were important, and she colored it in, and it was a thing of beauty. So, and since then, I've made art projects for the 7th and 6th graders using the exact same approach to this, although 7th graders get a great deal more creative freedom in how their alphabet is set up. So some of the 6th graders only get a few colors to work with, and so the 7th graders get to pick the colors and the combinations of the colors as long as they stick to the list of 10 colors. Which, by the way, you might have noticed does not include white, and one of those, that's because I don't want you all skipping the coloring. So a lot of times students will color their colors in, but they'll want to use white so that they don't have to color that square in, and I'm really against that. I make the 6th graders actually color the whites in white. And in the video that goes along with this 6th grade project, like this one right here with the 7th grade project, you can see me working the color in the whites, and it's noticeable. The paper brightens up, and also it gets glossy right where the colored pencil goes on at, because the colored pencil is really very shiny, and when the light from the projector and the light from the camera hit it, you can see it. So there we go. We're making good progress here though today. In the past, I've been struggling to keep the production rate up. Simply, it's very tedious work. This message has got a lot of complex letters in it that require careful attention to what you're doing, and it slows you down, but it's going to make for a much more visually interesting piece of artwork in the end, I believe. So sometimes you got to cope with that increase in complexity if it's giving you something that pays off the other way. So it's like patience. Patience. Sometimes, if you're a fisherman, patience is good. You wait long enough, you'll probably catch a fish. But then other times, you wait all that time and you still don't catch a fish, right? So you can't ever really guarantee what the outcome is going to be of being patient, but more often than not, you get a better quality art product out of it. Okay, that looks pretty good. That's very glossy. I'll try to address some of my opacity in there, but it's very glossy. The waxing material of the colored pencil is really shiny. And you get it on there real dense and opaque. Okay, well, I've spent a lot of my days making art here. I hope you all are keeping up with the project pace. I'm trying to go as fast as I can go and still get good product. Alright, let's move on to that magenta so we can move on to the next letter, which I think is going to have to be that letter N up there. I can't see surrounding it before I take care of it, so I'll probably just have to color it in. I've seen some of the photographs of some of y'all's artwork, and I got to say, some of it's starting to come along pretty good. You do really need to bear down on the color pencil point, and really block out all the little specks of white that are showing through. Simply because it looks like a much better project that way. It doesn't look like something that you've rushed through and just because it's a project you had to make in art class. Art is a really big reflection of your own work habits and of your own dedication to a craft, and so you really should, if you're going to take the time to make a piece of artwork, and if you plan on showing that piece of artwork to other people, then you should be dedicated to your craft and do careful work and pace yourself out so that you finish it by the deadline. And then keep that piece of artwork forever, because it says something that will remind you this time in these e-lessons. Alright, I think I'm going to have to resharpen my magenta here. I think I got all of the mileage I can get out of it. Well, I was doing really good on my colored pencils. I hadn't broke one off between all three of these various projects, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade projects. And then on the 8th grade project, using the violet colored pencil, I broke it off like 3 times in a row. I just couldn't get it to sharpen. It was infuriating. So now I have to be extra careful so I don't waste that violet colored pencil, which I'm going to be needing here, I'm pretty certain, pretty soon. So I encountered some of the same problems the students struggle with sometimes about how to deal with an unruly colored pencil that doesn't want to sharpen and show up for work on a Monday here. So when it snapped off again, I just put it back in there and was really careful about how I applied pressure to it, and I wore it all the way out. I made it work anyhow. It was driving me nuts. And it's the one thing that I know drives students crazy is their sharpeners sometimes fight with them and don't necessarily want to sharpen a pencil. And so I've got other sharpeners. If that should ever happen to you in the physical classroom, come and see me, and I'll try to help you out there. We've got more sharpeners, and sometimes I can even change the blades out of the sharpeners to get you back on track there. But having to sharpen a pencil all the time is just a pain in the neck, and it causes your project to just really slow down. Alright, now this is looking pretty good, I gotta say. Check for the opacity, although I like to finish this stuff up prior to moving on to the next thing, because that seems to really be a good way to get done bad. Fast way to get done bad is by skipping around all the time. Alright, we're going to have to now, I suppose, go back up to this letter N, and they seem to take a while to do, so let's erase this out of here carefully. And I could look at my worksheet, but I've got a letter N here to reference. I've also got a letter N there as well, and so I think I'll just use those for reference and try to keep my project moving. But if you don't have it done this far yet, then you will definitely have to reference your worksheet there and keep it moving. This project will go on with or without everybody. Okay, it looks like I've got the magenta is already sharpened, and it looks like it goes magenta there, so I'm just going to go ahead and take care of that and tag this one in too, so I know what I'm doing as I go along here. Now I think I'm coloring faster than I used to in the previous sessions, and I'm getting some pretty good product also. So I think that's all just part of the how when you start making a piece of artwork, you get a thing happening called a learning curve, and that you get better at doing a task through kinesthetic memory or body memory, muscle memory as a lot of people call it. And once your hand gets toughened up and the muscles in your hand are tough, and you've got, you know, you don't have, your fingers don't start getting, you've got muscles in your fingers too, but once you start getting all of those muscles toughened up and strengthened, then this kind of goes along a little bit faster and with more accuracy as well. So it's just a skill that you, through persistence, you acquire. Now some people will never acquire it simply because there's just some limitation to some people's learning abilities. However, most people that I know, they can make artwork, and they can, after some experience, can make it relatively quickly and high quality and complex work too. So you can really get bogged down sometimes if you get involved in too many of the details early on in a piece of artwork. I think it's important to really solve the bigger issues first, jump to the biggest parts of the coloring first, I suppose, things that normally people say, well, that will be boring. Well, you might, maybe so, but it will also help you get it done faster. And what is really boring, I would think, is just going on forever and ever and ever with a piece of artwork that you're doomed never to finish because you got bogged down with the details. So in that case, I would say, you just gotta start with the large areas, and this one is also that color there as well. Start with the large areas when you can, address those, and then you'll start to see the artwork develop, and you'll be more committed to the creation of it that way. It's when you get all wrapped up in a detail, and it takes forever to resolve that detail, and you never really resolve that detail, that the whole work bogs down. So it's a lot like painting a house. Don't start, you do it the little stuff. You got a whole house to paint, so you got to paint the big things first. Or I guess a better idea would be painting a barn. If you get involved in all the trim work for the barn first, that's going to take a long time, because the barn is mainly the task of filling in one color in large areas. Okay, this is looking pretty good here. Okay, nice, dense, opaque, rich, light blue color. Okay, next one. So I'm hoping I can get through this pretty quickly here. These letters N have been slow going in the other squares previously, and it's I can see why, but we got to just keep flipping that pencil around, get that little sharp corner, so we can tuck it in for the fine detail work. And maybe I shouldn't have chose so many colors for my letter N. It was fun to make it all this color when I was doing the worksheet, but it was now it's turned out to be a little bit problematic in the long haul. And I really want to see this project get done in the next couple of sessions here. We're getting close to wrapping up the whole unit on design, and it's just about time to move on to our next projects and the next block of instruction. Okay, let's see what else we got in this. I see that there's aqua here and tan here, so I'm going to go to the aqua next. Hit that and this. Okay. Used a lot of the tan earlier too, even though you all are not working on the 8th grade project. I used a lot of the tan earlier on the 8th grade project, and so it's not one that's represented frequently in this particular piece of artwork right here, but in the 8th grade artwork I need it. Okay, so it does seem like I'm coloring faster. This aqua right up next to this brown reminds me of mint chocolate chip ice cream. I could go for some of that right now. A little early in the day though for ice cream, even though it's going on noon, I think, around here somewhere. Somewhere thereabouts, time-wise. Alright, continuing on. So I'm hoping that your project's coming along, at least as good as the one here. You should have, if you're following along with the instruction precisely the way I'm doing it each day, you should be getting a ton of work done. Now, if you're trying to watch the very last video and fly through it like you're going to get it done, well, that's probably not going to happen. You're not going to have a good outcome. I've seen a number of those types of approaches fail over the years. So, you're better off just to stick at it a little bit at a time. And if you're keeping up with the instruction that I got here for you, then you are doing a fantastic job, and you don't have anything to worry about, because when I'm done with the project, that's going to be the end of it. Alright, that looks pretty good. Let's go to that tan, if I can find it in here. Tan is going to need some sharpening. So in a lot of ways, even though this may be a e-lesson, or let's say a makeup lesson, or a remote lesson, or perhaps a virtual lesson, I'm doing it along with you, and that's taking up almost exactly the same amount of class time as it would if we were in the physical classroom together. So it's simply duplicating or replicating what we would do in the physical classroom anyway. So those of you that have been in my 6th and 7th grade classes over the past few seasons know that I work with the 6th and the 7th graders and the 8th graders, in fact, and we do a lot of these projects together. And if you're in class and you're keeping up with what I'm doing, then you are making a really good progress. Now, some people can't keep up with the speed of production that I can hit pretty rapidly here sometimes. So if that's your case, especially if you're e-learning, or if you're making this project up, just slow the video down, or maybe even just pause it until you catch up with where I'm at, and then just go ahead and let it play until you fall behind again, and then pause the video until you catch up. It's not really a race so much as it is an approach to doing your work, which is fast and good if you can, but good is better than fast. But there are deadlines, so all these things are ideas and issues that we've got to balance out when we're making artwork. How good does it have to be done? When is it due? What are the consequences if I don't make the deadline? What are the consequences if I make the deadline but the piece of artwork is junk? So it's a hard thing to balance out. That's why not everybody in the world is involved in art. And just the work part of it, the artwork is daunting, can be overwhelming, in fact. When I was in college, I had friends who were engineering majors, and they said that they did less work in their engineering math and engineering labs than I did as an art student. And they were shocked that I was constantly not able to get to socialize because I was working on art projects constantly. Okay, this one is going to be orange, but it's also orange up here. So let's see, this is orange, and this is orange up here. So I can tag those and continue working. Now I've got this little bit of aqua right there. It's going to mess with me, but I'm hoping it's essentially unnoticeable to most people, so I'm going to let it stay. Still got some orange left over from the last time I used it. So it's important to try to make these pencils, last as long as we can. And so breaking them off all the time, either on purpose or just through carelessness, really slows your project down. Plus you end up just with a blister on your finger from sharpening stuff all the time. Okay, so let's get over here for this one. It's starting to come along pretty good here. These are complicated letters here. A lot of repetition. A lot of intense focus. Long sustained attention span work. I'm thinking we're closing in on the finish line of this art project and this unit. So it seems like a million years ago when we started this. It was really only a few days ago. But in the real classroom, time goes by fast. In the e-classroom, it may not go by quite so fast. But if you occupy yourself like I'm doing, it seems to me that I don't have enough time even in the e-classroom. I'm certainly not going to subject you all to lessons that are hours long. Alright, it's looking pretty good. What else have we got in this? We've got the dark brown, which already has a little bit on it. And let's see, that's going to be dark brown here. Dark brown here. Yes, okay. And thank goodness, this is the last letter N in this project. Now I've been working with the settings on the cameras and the settings on the projector, and so I think what we're getting is a better video almost every time that I come back for another E-lesson with my students. So I am really kind of hopeful that these videos are coming through in better quality almost each time. Normally, if I was making artwork on my own, I would be listening to music. However, in classroom, it's somewhat disturbing to a lot of people, and then I used to have music in the classroom, but everybody would argue over what to listen to. So I had to just go away, because all it was doing was causing more trouble than it was solving. Okay. Well, I'm feeling hopeful about this right here as the session ticks away in the background, if you're aware of that clock that's running in the background. It rings after about 38 minutes, which is usually about enough time for me to finish up one more thing on the coloring here. When that happens, and then that's enough for one session. But right now, I'm hoping we can get this part done here. Okay, now, looks like we've got up here, this is yellow-green and yellow-green. So let's find the yellow-green. That's a jade green. I want yellow-green that needs to be sharpened. See what we got going there. This is starting to shape up. It's a good-looking project. Good message. Appropriate for the era. Alright, yellow-green here, yellow-green here. Protect it with your slip sheet. Smudge it all together, because nothing ruins artwork like polluted colors. Okay. So e-lessons, they can be useful. I think they'd be better for simply making up work, which this one will always be for. So if you were to come to my lessons late, say you moved in from another district or you've been out sick for a long period of time, then I would have you use this particular message so that we don't have to go back and re-instruct everything for how the message that the current classroom is using is made. So this would be a great alternative for that, and so I'm kind of excited. I'm not a big enthusiastic supporter of this type of learning, but I do believe it does have some value, and that value I think lies in helping students keep up that fall behind sometimes. Okay, now I'm hoping I can get that violet done here too, which is coming up next. I used a lot of it in the 8th grade project I was working on earlier. I kept snapping it off. It was infuriating. Okay. Alright, now we're making progress. Alright, so yeah, I have a timer going so that we end up using the same amount of time that we would in a regular classroom. And so that was my goal when I set out to do these e-lessons as your art teacher, was do my best to duplicate exactly what was happening in my classroom back at Warner Middle School. So if you were in my classroom and we were this far along in a project, you would be doing exactly what we're doing right here, which is coloring. Okay, here's my violet that I was struggling with last time. This is violet and this is violet. That violet really brings out the reddish color of the brown. Isn't that funny? Now when you put colors next to each other, sometimes they interact with each other visually. And local color is what we call that. It's when you can see one color changing the color it is next to. and it doesn't really change the color so much as the way it absorbs and reflects the light, and so our perception of it changes when we put certain colors next to each other. And our vision can see a lot of details of colors, but then again it's also easily fooled by things like camouflage. So pattern and color can make things disappear as easily as they can make things jump out and, you know, and really make them visible. They can make them invisible as well. So pattern and color, even though that's basically the basis of our designs, is also very powerful visually, and certain colors will affect the way that you perceive other colors if they are near them. And you can sometimes get just color vision fatigue too. Sometimes you just got to stop coloring when you can't focus your eyes, or you can't really see the interaction of those colors working together. You need to back up. It's a problem with me when I'm painting at close distance to my work, and especially using yellow, because yellow tends to just really overwhelm my vision. I don't know about other people, but staring at yellow, pure saturated yellow, while you're painting it is kind of messes with my eyes after a few minutes. Okay, this is coming along better than I had anticipated. Alright, let's get that tucked into that corner right there. Move on to the next letter. Alright, that looks pretty opaque. Alright, I'm going to step back and see what it is we've made here so far, and I gotta say, that's coming along. So what I think I'm going to do next is go down to this letter R and just keep kind of moving my way from the left to the right. I'm going to run out of, maybe I'll save these two for the very end so I can have a little fun. Alright, the letter R. We could look at the worksheet and it would show us that our letter R is like an orange cross with violet and magenta, but we could also, you know, look at the letter R that we did up here, which is exactly the same. So I'm going to go ahead and get my orange out and start on the, I better erase this letter. Better erase the letter so it doesn't show through my coloring later time. Try to erase little markings out of there that will show through the orange, because the orange isn't always doesn't have a lot of concealing power. Okay, very good. Now get busy here with this orange. Well, a lot of people have been shut up indoors, I think, lately here, and the weather's been pretty nice on the outside there, and so I've been trying to do some yard work. I don't know if you all have been doing yard work out there in lesson land or not, but it is really a good time for your lawn to grow. That's all I know. Mine is already requiring a great deal of work. Had to work on my mower yesterday a little bit. Fired it up on the very first crank of the pull of the crank, so I was pretty happy about that for the season here. Alright, I got to sharpen my orange before I scratch my artwork, which I cannot stand scratching it. Okay, I make sure. Oh, I think I may have snapped that lead. I've been getting overly greedy about this. I need to. Now I got to pay the price. By pointing it straight down, I can't tilt it at all, or my lead, I can see it bending out of shape. Here we go. I just got to be. Now I got to be patient. That's what I'm trying to say. So even though it's wobbly, I'm going to still keep working with it. Hopefully I'll just get it wore down to where it'll be pretty stable. So I've been having pretty good luck with not breaking off my colored pencils, but in today's particular session, haven't had so much luck. So I don't know why today is different other than what day it is. Maybe it's just because it's a dreary Monday. Maybe not where you're at today, especially if you're making this lesson up. Could be many different days. Okay, I'm getting somewhere here now. Gotta stay patient. Alright, so alright, see, even a broken pencil you can still get some mileage out of it if you treat it with some respect there. Firm pressure, but not too heavy pressure. Oh, wow. That came faster than I thought. That is the 38-minute bell there. So I'm going to finish up this portion of the letter R, and that's going to be enough for today. Tomorrow we'll have 1, 2, 3, and it looks like 1/2 letters to finish up. And with any luck, today we got they're complicated letters. Sometimes they take a while. So these, it looks like about 2.5 full letters today. But if you can get that much done in each day, that's how you got to plan your workout. Is how many days will it take to finish the 24 characters in our message, and how many per day do I have to do in order to get it done on time. And that's what your production rate is, which is one of the things that is graded in your daily working grade. If you are familiar with that by now, you should, because we've been in E-class for a couple of weeks now. Okay, now just the very last thing. There we go. Now it's messing with my mind. So here, we'll just hold this down so it doesn't flash. Still wants to flash, though, doesn't it? It seems not to do that when I color this way. Oh, I wonder what it is. Well, I'm still got to remember that my lead is not completely safe. It's a little snapped off still. Alright, but I'm getting pretty good control. See, the thing is, if that lead is broken, it wobbles around, and sometimes it doesn't, you can't color right up against the line